How to homestead, 4 decision phases. Your success is based more on your determination and decisions than in your current skill set. The How to Homestead Series. We're here on episode number 5 today. Yeah, and this will be talking about skill inventory, health skill inventory, and we're going to dive right into this. And as always, the outline for today is up in the description. So go up there, and if you want the outline from previous weeks, you can go back to those and pull those up. At the top of the skill inventory, let's talk about health. Your health. Because that's probably one of the most important things that could help you on the homestead. Not that you can't homestead if you aren't perfectly 100% healthy. I mean, not that you can't homestead if you have significant significant health issues, but it may take more efforts in one way or another. I look at, Paul Gochi of the Back to Eden Garden. I mean, he's got very significant difficulties, and yet he's still able to garden. It just takes longer. But you want to maximize your health. Let's just put it that way. And if you're overweight or have many of our health issues today, whether it's heart disease or cholesterol, kind of along the same line, or you have a problem with insulin, if you got diabetes, most of those are correctable. Not all of them, but most of them are correctable by the right diet and exercise. So if you're really serious about homesteading and you're not on a homestead yet, then that would be one of the top goals, to start getting fit as best you can to get ready for it. It's one of the best preparations you can do. So I recommend you get on an exercise regime after you've talked with your doctor, of course. Start exercising and change your diet if you're not eating correctly. When I was younger, my cholesterol was, we have a family history of really high cholesterol, around 400. And I finally got out of that, switched to, we went vegetarian and then went vegan, and now my cholesterol is down about 100. And I have way more energy, and it's helped with some of the other health issues. So I'm not saying that everyone has to go vegetarian or vegan, but I'm saying is you got to be careful of your diet. And the fats and sugars in our diets today are awful. The processed food, stay away from it. It's terrible. Are you willing to make dietary changes to prepare for going on the homestead? Preparing your body for homesteading. Are you willing to get the exercise needed to prepare your body? And if you answered yes, then now's the time to take that step and set some guidelines for yourself. And that's one of your top motivations. Almost along the same lines. Determination, relentlessness. What is your level of relentlessness? When you make up your mind to get something done, do you get it done, or does it sit around? How firm do you stick to it to get that accomplished? There's so many people that they start on a project and then it gets tough and they drop it. And then they start on another new project. I've been to some people's places where there's half-finished projects all over the place. You're going to have to be disciplined enough to get a project. When you start it, you're going to finish it before you move on to the next one. Generally. It can't always be the case. Now, determination is the fuel that kind of lights the fire under your homestead endeavors. So don't take it lightly. How determined, relentless are you in getting things accomplished? Rank yourself from 1 to 10. Now this one's even tougher. If you're going to be homesteading with a significant other, then rank each other on 1 to 10 and state reasons why or why not you feel that's the case. Not to start a fight here, but helps to know thyself and your partner. Know your spouse. Drive. We're going to talk about drive. This is 5B, drive. Drive is a kindred of, but not exactly the same as determination. You can be determined to get something done, but you may not be driven to get it done. And I found that sometimes I'm determined to get something done, but I'm not really that anxious to get it done. Drive is like a forced anxiousness, I guess that would be one way to put it. That you really want to get in there, you want to spend the time to get the stuff done. Yeah, drive is like you want to work at it at every opportunity until it's done. You just, I want to get it done. I want to get it done. Now you can be crazy about it, but you still have to have a life. You don't want to give yourself a heart attack. There are some limitations. Here's a big question: are you willing to sacrifice your pleasures for a homestead? If applicable, if you work outside the house, do you have enough drive to be able to go to work, get ready, go to work, finally get all your way back home, and then go outside and work on the homestead? Do you have enough drive to do both? Most of us have to work, and it's kind of like two jobs sometimes. I'm really thankful I'm able to work out of the house, so I can kind of, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and back and forth. But, it's long days, hard work. Okay, now into what people would usually think of as skills. Mechanical aptitude. This is the ability to work on a system that you haven't been trained on. Someone with a mechanical aptitude can pick up something that they've never worked on before, figure it out basically, and be able to accomplish some objectives with it. It's very helpful, but it seems to be one of those things you're either born with or you're not. Although I've seen people that weren't born with it have developed enough skill to do pretty much anything they need to do. So, they can learn enough. Even if they don't have an aptitude, they just may have to study more and learn more from books. Now, aptitude, I think of a story. My grandfather was farming here, but he had been a blacksmith in the old country, and then his grandfather was a blacksmith, and it goes back, it's into the 1500s, into the Black Forest of Germany with our family. Anyhow, I digress. My grandfather had a very mechanical aptitude. He was also good with animals. He had a great team of horses. So one day he's with his team of horses in towards town, and this is back around the turn of the 20th century, right around 1900. And cars were just showing up, but only the rich had them. So there's this wealthy individual had this car, and he's having problems with the car. It just keeps faltering, and it's not running properly, and he just keeps getting stalled out with it. No matter what he does, he can't ever get this thing to work right. So he's like in total frustration when my grandfather comes up with his horse team and his wagon, and this guy, the wealthy individual, is like, oh, I'd trade you this car straight across for that horse team. That's a beautiful set of horses there. So my grandfather did. He traded him his horse team for the man's car. And my grandfather, he didn't know anything about cars. They didn't have the internet then. You couldn't go look it up and figure things out. So he got someone with some horses to pull the thing to his barn, and my granddad worked on it, had that car working. He never worked on a car before. Apparently the car worked great after that, and he used it for a long time. So, if you have aptitude, like in one area, you often find you can work on things in other areas. Yeah, it doesn't mean you shouldn't study and learn more specifics about plumbing and electrical. I'm not saying you just dive in and do stupid things, but I am saying it's a great help to have a mechanical aptitude. So think about that and question, how do you rank yourself on a mechanical aptitude scale for both of you from 1 to 10? Do you feel confident that you could pretty much pick up anything and start working on it and have, some level of success? So, it's one of the things to keep in mind. Next, planning and organization. What is the extent of your planning and organization in regards to projects? You just get out there and start whacking away, or do you used to planning it? Planning is primarily a thinking exercise. You go through it mentally and figure out, all the steps. First of all, figure out what it is you're trying to achieve. I see people get started and they haven't really outlined what their goals are for the project. So when you get to work on a project, you want to think, what are the results I want out of this? Also think about factors like, obviously I want it to be waterproof when the snow comes, when it freezes, I don't want to damage. You got to think about these factors that affect it. So that's all part of the planning process. You think through some of those things. And it helps to really mentally exercise going through the build process. So, that's something you can do when you're laying in bed and sit there and, plan a project. There's the planning phase and there's organization phase. Now, planning is primarily, like I said, in the mind and on paper. And organization is often organizing your tools, organizing your life, organizing your time to maximize your efficiency in getting things done, getting projects accomplished. That's my clipboard's over there somewhere, but it's like part of my organization. As I've said on another video, I always keep my clipboard with me around here, and I'm always jotting down things that need to be done. And I have my list of my items to do then and little notes about it because I might forget little specific details about it. So organization is very important. So planning and organization. Again, how would you rate yourself in terms of planning and organization? And from 1 to 10, let's say. Now, other thing here is how, if you're not up towards the upper end of that scale, what changes can you make to start becoming more organized? You can start becoming organized on your things right around the house or where you're living now in terms of getting things accomplished, writing down a list of things that are important to get done, and then following up on those items and, marking them off. This would be a good basis to help you to start getting ready for homesteading. And the homestead, there are so many things. And many times what's frustrating is these things all interrelate. I found with so many of my projects, it's like, you want to get started and you want to do A, B, and C. Well, then when you plan through it a little more, you find, this really has to be done first before I can do this. And then, this has to happen. And then, so you really got to walk through it. And it can be complicated on a tough project. Doing my whole upper garden, there were so many steps to that. Leveling it out and putting the rock wall and all that had to be done before I could put the fence up. And the fence had to go up before I could put the garden in. And then I also had to dig the trench up there to run my wires to come down here. Otherwise, it would have gone right through my garden. And this is all before I could put the trees up. And then the garden after that. So it was just, all these interrelated steps. So think about planning and organization and start getting organized now. Start working towards that. Now we get into very specific skills. And here, of course, I'm not going to mention them all because there's like an infinite number. Obviously it can't all be mentioned. So let's start off. Landscaping, grading, and drainage. And this is super important if you get a place that is new or perhaps hasn't been done right in the first place. Although you may not need the ability to get on a backhoe and be able to go out and create the drainage and create the proper landscape, let's say flow, elevations, you should understand what the concepts are. You want to study a little bit, read about it, understand the concepts about having things flow away from the house, getting sufficient drainage, going off your hill. You're going to want to look and understand all this, so if you do hire someone, you know what needs to be done. It'll also help you when you're looking at homesteads. There are some places that are like, this is crazy, this would cost $100,000. There's some of these things that would require putting up big concrete walls and, all this to try to block water from just inundating your place. And nowadays, there's so many pieces, the best pieces of land were often picked up at the beginning. So the pieces of land we get now are less and less good. They're more of a trade-off. So it's something you need to be aware of. Study it, read up about it. Well, do you have any knowledge of that? Mark it down. What's your understanding and ability in general construction? Yeah, I'm talking here about rough carpentry, studs, king studs, jack studs, headers, and understanding how all that fits together. Can you reframe a wall? Do you know how to put in a window? Door, frame a door, put other structures together. About drywall and painting. What are your skills in that area? Now, not that you are necessarily going to have to do them all yourself all the time. I've hired out particularly items like drywall here and painting, because it's something that, let me say, it wouldn't be critical to me if, a guy missed a spot with a paintbrush. I can fix it. But if someone wires my house wrong, or does my plumbing wrong, or puts in the structure and cuts corners to where my house is not safe, that would be bad. I end up spending too much time watching over someone if I'm going to have them do that kind of work, and they're often too costly anyway. So those I like to do myself. But simpler items, I'm willing to hire those things out. But you want to have an understanding of construction for sure. What's your level of construction skills in general construction? I'm not talking about furniture making, I'm talking about general construction. And if you plan on putting up a house that's not a stick frame house, if you're looking for a mortise and tenon, if you're looking to your house with post and beam construction, with mortises and tenons, then of course you need more skills, and it's helpful to get some practice with that before you actually start cutting into the house. So what's your skill level in that? You need some book knowledge, but then go on to that with some practical knowledge. Woodworking in general, and again, not ornate furniture work, although that can be helpful in a house. But building, repairing, doing basic cabinets like kitchen cabinets, hanging them, cutting some elements for the doors, cutting pieces for the shelves in the cabinet, and elements like that, doing crown molding, chair rails, those items. What are your skill levels there? And how would you rank yourself on general woodworking from 1 to 10? Electrical, I think, is perhaps one of the very most important skills you could have in a home or a homestead. There's so many items on a home or a homestead that require a little electrical work, whether you're adding another outlet or you're just doing some other small element. There's a great deal of that involved in a homestead. And electrical work costs a lot of money. It's very expensive to have someone come out and do, and if it's a small project like adding an outlet, you're really better off if you can do those things yourself. Now, if it comes to major electrical work, it depends on where you're at and depends on your skill level. Don't jump in above your head. Learn what you can and start doing the small things. If you really haven't had experience with it, start out with the small things. Don't get in and screw up your place and have to be torn down to repair your electrical mistakes. There's a lot of codes involved. The codes are there for your safety. I'm not saying that every code out there is a good thing. I think they go overboard in many cases, a lot of cases these days. But they're there for your protection, and you want to understand what the codes are, and you want to follow the codes in building your place. And if things are behind the walls, and I know there's a lot of areas where you can build without having an inspector come out all the time. But if you don't know what you're doing, don't risk the life of your family and having the place burn up because you didn't take the time to study or get someone in there to do it right. And yet, that being said, there's still an awful lot you can learn to do yourself. Electrical really isn't that difficult in general. It can be picked up, I think, very quickly. Watch some shows on electrical, study some YouTube videos. So, electrical. How would you rate yourself in terms of electrical? Are you comfortable, for example, mark this, are you comfortable with cutting in an outlet yourself? Are you comfortable with running a new line into an existing breaker box? Or are you comfortable with swapping the breakers around in your breaker box? Are you comfortable with wiring up new power equipment, putting in whole new lines? You're going to run a whole line of outlets to connect power equipment in a shop. Would you be comfortable with doing that? Do you know what the regulations are in terms of where you can run Romex and where you'd have to have wire that's in a conduit? And these things you can, study up on. But where are you right now? Rank yourself on that from 1 to 10. Plumbing. Another big hot item. At least plumbing, once it's usually done in your house, you don't often have to come back and add a lot of extra plumbing. You pretty much connect up all the sinks, toilets, faucets, and then you're done. Whereas electrical is often an ongoing issue. You're often adding more and more electrical as you go along. Well, unless you're off grid, then you have to be very careful. But so plumbing. even the experts, I go crazy. The stuff I've seen that so-called experts do in plumbing, especially when it comes to cutting through structure. I found things on this house and I'm just like, I just couldn't believe it. They just basically cut through the structure, and not just, you know, a little small amount of studs. It basically destroyed studs across the whole section of the wall, where you think, how can the wall even hold itself up? Idiots. So even if you hire someone, you have to be very careful, because these some plumbers, most plumbers out there probably do, you know, wonderful work. But I've run across a few of them, and I've seen work from plumbers that don't take the care. I'm sure they know better, but it's quicker and dirtier to whack through your studs and get things done. So you better understand some of this so you can ask questions, even if you're having someone else do it. And once you've learned and understand everything about it, you might as well do it yourself. Anyway, that's my thought. Unless you've got a large area. So, you know, you want to start studying this, but right now, ask yourself the question, where are you about plumbing? Would you feel comfortable putting in a drain? Would you be able to run a drain and hit your main drain and connect it in? Would you be comfortable running that, adding an extra sink and being able to plumb it? Do you understand about proper venting for sinks and toilets? So, you know, ask yourself a question, where are you on this from 1 to 10? Would you be comfortable to do those items? Doing concrete, brick, block work. That can be huge on the homestead too. Concrete, you've got patios, you've got walkways to put in. There's often walls to put in other areas. So are you comfortable in that? Do you understand those areas? Rank yourself, 1 to 10. Metalworking. And there's so many things you're going to want to do in steel. Well, steel, aluminum, whatever, doing metals. And you want to become familiar with that. You could get by without it, but I'd say there's a lot of elements where it's just super helpful. So where are you in terms of metalworking? Now we get into some others. Sheetrock, painting. Like again, those could be hired out. They're fairly easy to do yourself, but you know, learn the tricks. Where are you on the scale on those? How about we get into one that's huge for a homestead? Gardening. Do you like to eat? Yeah, I like to eat. Eat, yes. Me like to eat. Well, if you like to eat, you better learn to grow it. Gardening and animal care. If you're going to raise animals for food, then you better learn how to take care of them. Yeah, better learn how to butcher them. Gardening's a big learning curve, and it also depends on where you're at. And even the specific soil. I found that things that would grow on other people's properties around here just don't really grow well in my soil, and vice versa. So you need to be able to find out for your specific soil. It takes a lot of experimentation. You want to come into it with as much knowledge as you can, but like I say, once you're there, you're still going to have to experiment. You know, I see a lot of questions on YouTube's about, how much area am I going to need to feed my family of 4? There's a huge number of variables in that, huge. So you can find some indicators here and there, but those indicators are usually by someone who's an expert's been doing gardening for 20 years. And I'll say when you start gardening, you'd be lucky to get 25% or 50% of the productivity that person gets out of his garden. So, you know, there's a lot of huge factors. You want to start studying it, reading good books about gardening. Your animal care. Again, now rate yourself. Have you ever done a garden before? How skillful are you at gardening? Do you just do the occasional tomato, or do you garden just about everything? Do you understand soils? So it's another thing to put down on your list. Rank yourself on those and start studying. And remember, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And we'd love to hear your comments. Are you on the process? What other elements do you think are important? If you can share that with others, we'd appreciate it. And please subscribe. Push that subscribe button. All right, hasta la proyecto. RH here.